This video is sponsored by Paperlike. Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and this is the latest 2020 iPad Pro. This is an upgrade that a lot of people were looking forward to, including myself, ever since that major redesign on the 2018 model. Now, this one isn't a major redesign, but there are some interesting upgrades in this one, including a new LiDAR scanner, which should help for augmented reality applications, as well as a brand new ultra-wide camera, improvements on the microphone, and a new A12Z chip where I'm curious to see if there's going to be any performance benefits with that Z labeling. So for this video, let's go ahead and unbox this iPad Pro. Let's see what's new, and then I will give you my first impressions on this device. So you can see right on the front of the iPad Pro 2020 box is, of course, the iPad Pro. It's showcasing one of the new wallpapers, and this is the 12.9-inch model with the 256 gigabyte configuration. Let's open this up by ripping off this nice little pull tab we have here, which makes it super easy to just rip that plastic off. Let's lift the box up to reveal the iPad Pro in all of its glory. Now, let's go ahead and remove this, and we'll get to this a little bit later, because obviously we have some more boring stuff to go over, like usual. So, of course, we have the documentation inside of here, which is going to show you how to use your iPad Pro. And I'm guessing there's some sort of Apple stickers in here somewhere. There they are. So you can see white Apple stickers included with your purchase of the iPad Pro. It was well worth the investment. Obviously, we also have the USB-C to USB-C cable. The iPad Pros charge via USB-C and not Lightning. And of course, we have our 18-watt power adapter, which is going to be good when you are charging a bigger device like the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So let's turn our attention back to this guy. This is why you're here. The iPad Pro 2020, as you can see on the front of the device, not much has changed, but if we flip it over to the back, you can see the brand new squared off camera bump. Let's go ahead and peel this plastic off. Now, obviously, you can see that I have the silver model here. Now, I am actually upgrading from the 11-inch iPad Pro. This is the 2018 model, and you can see the size difference between the 12.9-inch and the 11-inch, which is really, really dirty. But anyway, let me power this on. I'm going to set this up, going to use it for a little while, and then I'll come back to you with my first impressions. Okay, so I finished setting up the iPad, and I've been using it all day, so let's talk about it. So obviously, as you can see, this iPad Pro, like I mentioned before, looks pretty much exactly the same as the old 2018 model and has a lot of the same features. So things like the display are unchanged. It still has the 120 Hz ProMotion display, still has a True Tone display with the P3 wide color gamut, and gets up to 600 nits of brightness. So usually this is the part where I tell you, even though it looks the same, there are changes to the internals. And that's partly true. So as we open up Geekbench 5, we can see that one change is that all models of the 2020 iPad Pro now come with 6 gigabytes of RAM. It also does come with a new chip. However, it's labeled the A12Z chip. The last iPad Pro had an A12X, and I was expecting an A13X. So this looks like an in-between upgrade. So let's run a Geekbench benchmark and see if we're getting any performance improvements. As we run Geekbench, we can see that we get a single core score of 1,121 and a multi-core score of 4,672. Almost identically comparable to the old 2018 model. Now, I for one was not surprised by this result. That's because Apple basically said that there were no changes to the CPU power in the A12Z, but after reading through their documentation, they did say that the A12Z contained a more powerful GPU. The A12X had a 7-core GPU, and now this new A12Z has an 8-core GPU. So I ran a metal benchmark on Geekbench 5 to see what the difference was in the score. So running the metal benchmark, we got a score of 10,076, which if we compare that against the 2018 model, we get a metal score of 9,018. And yes, that's just a benchmark, that's not real world testing, But here we can see that the GPU did in fact receive an upgrade, and now, at least in the metal score on Geekbench, it's breaking over to the 10,000 area. But, especially compared to other years, this is a very, very, very minor spec bump. Now, the only real design change, of course, is this new, bigger, squared-off camera bump, which also means that you might need to buy a new Smart Keyboard Folio if you're coming from the 2018 model to accommodate that camera bump. However, thankfully, the second generation Apple Pencil still works. It still magnetically charges on the side. And if you really want to make this experience even better, you need to check out our sponsor for this video, Paperlike. Paperlike is the screen protector that makes your iPad's Pro display actually feel like you're writing on paper. Installing Paperlike is super easy to do all by yourself and even comes with a second additional Paperlike screen protector. Once on, Paperlike not only protects your screen, but it also gives a more textured feel that, you guessed it, feels and sounds like paper. Furthermore, Paperlike uses a new nanodot surface technology that shows almost no light diffusion, letting you keep the iPad's great display quality. The nanodot surface also allows for increased control and precision with your Apple Pencil, rather than the default slippery display on the iPad. Paperlike is even great without the Apple Pencil, giving you a more matte finish that reduces fingerprint smudges. Also, Paperlike is available for any iPad, so if you want your iPad's display to feel more like paper, click the link in the description below. And thank you so much to Paperlike for sponsoring this video. Okay, so a pretty similar design, a minor spec bump, and 6 gigabytes of RAM. That's nice. But Apple added a little bit more here, and that mostly comes in the form of this new camera on the back of the device. So now with this 2020 iPad Pro, you get the wide-angle lens and an ultra-wide-angle lens. The interesting thing is, the wide-angle lens is still 12 megapixels, but the ultra-wide-angle lens is 10 megapixels, which is different from the iPhone 11. Both of those cameras are 12 megapixels. And I know I'm probably going to look a little bit ridiculous taking that 12.9-inch iPad Pro outside, but I need to do that to get some better sample photos. But for now, the wide-angle and ultra-wide-angle camera seem to work okay. But even that isn't the biggest upgrade when it comes to the new camera system, because there's actually a third sensor in there, a sensor that Apple is calling a LiDAR sensor. Now, Apple basically says that this sensor is designed for augmented reality applications. Now, I did test out the LiDAR scanner using the IKEA app to place some lamps on my table, and I was actually a little bit impressed with the results. The augmented reality was really good, and I could actually move the iPad around, observe all the design details and even little design details about these IKEA lamps, and the augmented reality was so good that I could even slide the Apple Pencil under the lamp, and it slid under the lamp. It didn't glitch out or anything like that. And those were some of the features that Apple was talking about with this improved sensor. It also means that if you're used to using augmented reality on an older iPad, you'll notice that you have to hold it up and then scan the room before the augmented reality kicks in. With the new LiDAR sensor, this happened instantly. I didn't need to scan my environment. Now, even though I was impressed by this demo, I feel like I need to spend a lot more time with this, because this is one of the things where it might seem cool at first, but I may never use this feature again or find a realistic use case for it. So you want to maybe come back and revisit my opinion on this in the full review. Now, there was one other upgrade, and that is the addition of what Apple calls studio quality microphones. We've seen this on the 16-inch MacBook Pro already, and I wanted to test this on the new iPad Pro. So I did a short voice sample, which you can hear right now. This is a test of using the new iPad Pro 2020 studio quality microphones. I think it sounded good, but I'm not sure if it sounds as good as the microphones in the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Okay, and that's basically all that's new with the iPad hardware. Now, there are some other changes in the software with iPadOS 13.4, but you can use that on older iPads. One of the more significant changes was the addition, or I guess refinement, of mouse control. So I hooked up my Magic Trackpad and I was playing around shortly with the new mouse controls, and I like the way that Apple implemented them here. I, again, want to spend a lot more time with them, but the way that the cursor would adapt to different UI elements was pretty smart. It also gave me a glimpse of something that I think is even more exciting than this particular iPad upgrade, and that is the brand new Magic Keyboard with trackpad. Now, unfortunately, that product doesn't come out until May, so I really think that this iPad was really designed around that Magic Keyboard experience, and quite frankly, the accessory is more interesting than this current iPad upgrade. Now again, these are my first impressions. I would still recommend you wait for my full review if you want to get my ultimate advice on this iPad, but for now, it really looks like if you have a 2018 iPad Pro, you shouldn't upgrade to this model. If you're coming from an older iPad or an older iPad Pro, then yeah, this iPad isn't the biggest upgrade in the world, but it's still better than the model it replaced. So yeah, basically the best iPad just got a little bit better this time. But I still want to give it a fair shot. I still want to try out all the new features and use them for a longer period of time to see if maybe it's some life-changing thing that I just couldn't live without. But anyway, hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure you leave me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, including a full review of this iPad Pro, make sure you're subscribed. Also, be sure to let me know what you think of the 2020 iPad Pro in the comments below. Be sure to check out our sponsor for this video, Paperlike. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.